Good evening and welcome to Phoenixville Public Library, to our program tonight on Pennsylvania's Clean Slate law. This is a Clean Slate and Expungement workshop, and it's being presented by Deborah Steeves, who's a staff attorney with Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania. The way this program will work tonight is Deb will give her presentation, and then I'll stop recording, and then anybody in the room can feel free to ask questions at that time. So please welcome Deborah Steeves.
Thank you, Mark. So legal aid is a free legal services in the area of civil areas of law. There's actually legal aid in every county and in every county in the United States. Some of them are combined counties, but anywhere you go in the United States, you'll always be able to Google legal services. The thing to do is to make sure that you actually get the actual legal aid corporation instead of some attorney that just says, I'm providing legal services, because that will not be the legal services corporation. So our legal aid was merged in 2000 to combine all the suburban counties. Philadelphia was deemed too large to merge, so they're an entity in themselves. And that's why we're called Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania. And those are the practice areas that we provide help in: family law, domestic violence, housing, bankruptcy, consumer law, unemployment compensation, public benefits, Social Security, disability. Some counties do dependency, expungements, and elder law. So we get to do expungements because although they take place in the criminal court, it's considered a civil petition that we're filing to clear your record. Other than that, we're not allowed to practice criminal law. That's left to the public defender. So this isn't too important, but some people get a little bit upset if you, combine all the different ways of clearing your record and just call it an expungement, because there are differences in the law and what everything is called. Not every conviction or arrest can be expunged. The record, with some exceptions, aren't automatically expunged. The record isn't erased from all databases as if it never happened. A lot of people think, well, I was found not guilty or my charge was dismissed. Why should I worry about clearing my record? Well, because your employers will be able to see this public site that I'm going to go to in a minute that will list your arrest. So that's the easiest thing to get expunged. So the three different avenues of clearing your criminal record are not the same. And we'll get into each one of them. They're expungements, sealing, and pardons. Everything that we do in the law is always based on a statute. And by the way, this is state law. Every state has different laws about how you can clear your criminal record. So if your criminal record is in Delaware, Maryland, California, you'll have to call the legal aid in that area to determine if it's something that you can clear or not. Pennsylvania is at the front runner of clearing records, so hopefully we'll continue along that line. But the expungement law is found in one section: limited access, summary offenses, court cases are all rules and laws that tell us how to operate. So, if you haven't looked yourself up yet, this is what's called the public access. It's the UJS portal, .pacourts.us. And by the way, when I'm done, we can meet one-on-one here in sort of a private situation and look yourself up to see if there's something that we can do to help. Once you've looked yourself up and find that you do have a record and you do want to have it cleared, or perhaps somebody has stolen your identity and you see that record that's not yours, those are all things that we can help with. There's another way to order your state police record, and that's at that ePatch website. That's not free and it's not open to the public, but sometimes we'll order your state police record after your record's cleared, just to make sure that everybody's done their job in clearing that record and that it no longer exists. Once things are either expunged or sealed, or you have the pardon, it will no longer exist to the public, on your state police record or the FBI record. If you had your record sealed, and we'll get to that, it'll be in a computer vault, and we'll get to what that means. So this is what that UJS portal looks like. And you go up there to case information, and it'll say case search in the drop down, and then the middle one next is search by, and under that caret, it gives you a lot of options, but the main option is participant name. So if you don't know what's called your OTN number or your docket number, you can always search under participant name. If you have a common name, you'll want to fill in your birthday, but other than that, the only thing you have to fill in is the drop down under county, and if you select one county, that's enough to have you get to all the other counties. Your last name and your first name, and then you click, of course, search. I don't think I have the next thing that shows up, but what shows up after you do search is populated down here. Everything in the court's computer system will show up there. So you might see CV for civil cases if you were ever sued, or you might see LT for landlord tenant. You might see TR for traffic. If you got a parking ticket, you're going to show up on this UJS portal. The ones that you're going to be interested in are the ones that say CR for criminal or NT for non-traffic. And then over here, there'll be a D for the docket, and then there'll be columns that look like the courthouse. The columns give you a summary of everything that's on your record. The docket gives you the docket that opens up under that particular case. In the summary, that's where you would find, say you put in Chester County because you had an arrest in Chester County, but you also had an arrest in Philadelphia or Lehigh County or Berks County. That would show up in the columns summary part, so you wouldn't have to go back and keep putting in all the different counties. So, expungement is sort of the gold standard of clearing your criminal record. Why? Because it's completely erased from everywhere. It's not in a vault, no one has any access to it, it doesn't exist. That's why it's pretty limited. Expungements can only be for cases that were dismissed, withdrawn, you were found not guilty, the entire case was null pros. Not just one or two charges of the case, but the entire case. If you did the ARD program, that's a common program for first offenders, sometimes in DUI, but sometimes in any other case.
What does that stand for, please?
Accelerated something diversion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, forgot what the R is. And Section 17 probation. Now, the ARD program is something that you're put into, the judge has to agree to it, the prosecutor has to agree to it, and then it's about a year program that you do community service and things in. As long as you successfully complete that program, you get a letter from probation, congratulations. It's not enough just to have that letter from probation, you have to now file the petition to expunge so it's gone. So keep a hold of that letter so then it can be expunged. If it's an ARD for DUI, it won't be expunged from your from your motor vehicle driver's record until, I think, 7 more years have to pass before that happens. But if you're applying for a job that doesn't require somebody to do a motor vehicle check, then you can say, I've never been arrested. I've never, haven't had any conviction. They expanded the expungements to things that are called summary offenses. And those are those things that sometimes show up in that NT docket, non-traffic. It's thousands of charges: harassment, petty larceny, breach of peace, drunken public, thousands of them. They can now be expunged as long as you haven't had any arrests 5 years following your conviction. Not the date that you were arrested, but 5 years following the date that you sent in your money, like you were paying a parking ticket or showed up in court and pled guilty. Almost all juvenile records can get expunged, and those are done in the juvenile office by the juvenile probation officer. After you've received a pardon, it's not enough just to get your pardon letter. You have to then take that pardon and attach it to your expungement petition, and then everything gets expunged that got pardoned. If you are 70 years old or older, and you haven't been arrested in 10 years, everything can get expunged on your record. First of all, let me say, I will take questions in between as long as they're not personal.
Right.
If you have a general question of what I've talked about, fine. Otherwise, we're gonna wait till after a recording.
I missed your explanation of what a summary offense is.
A summary offense is about 5,000 petty criminal charges. Breach of peace, petty larceny, drunk in public. They show up usually on that docket search as an NT. But when you look at the docket itself, instead of an M for a misdemeanor or an F for a felony, it'll have an S as the grade, and that means summary.
Thank you.
If you've been dead for 3 years, your family can apply for an expungement if that's important to your family. Why do we think it's important to expunge a 70-year-old and older's criminal record? Anybody can think of that? Public housing.
Wow.
It's a big deterrent to public housing, and any kind of supported housing for an elderly person to have a criminal record. They sometimes just aren't admitted, even though, you know, it's been 10 years before that conviction, but they'll use any excuse. There are some exclusions, they're not common. People don't get ARD for sex crimes that I've found. Any of those other things, they're typically not gonna be summary offenses, but you never know. Pardons then, so that's the next level. It's a long journey to get a pardon. We had it down to about 3 years because of all the other ways to erase your record, but now it's back up to about 7 years. There are some fast tracks, like if you just had marijuana only. That gets fast tracked and you can usually get a pardon within 18 months to 2 years with that. So misdemeanor and felony convictions may be pardoned. After the pardon, again, the charges are expunged. The process is long. You can start preparing while you're waiting by getting letters of support, by reaching out to community members to see how people were successful, how they weren't successful. Let me see if there's another page for pardons. Not. Okay, so there's not another page for pardons. There's nothing written in stone, but there's a guideline. They expect you to wait 5 to 7 years after a misdemeanor to apply for a pardon, and again about 7 to 10 years for a felony. Some of that changes. Perhaps while you were in prison, you went to college, you got a BA, maybe in sociology, and then after you were out of prison, you became a peer support counselor, you helped, in the community. All of those things are kind of on the plus side in that letter of support column that makes that wait time a little bit shorter and makes you also a little bit more impressive candidate for the Board of Pardons. About 85% of the pardon applications get granted. So record sealing, that's the third part. You might have heard this called Clean Slate, because a few years back, 2018, the state of Pennsylvania decided that they would use their computer to go through everybody's records every day, and if somebody can get sealed, they're gonna do it that way, without a petition needing to be filed. That's called the Clean Slate. So, say you knew that you got arrested and convicted 10 years ago, if you look yourself up on the UJS portal and you're not there anymore, that's what that means. You've been clean slated. Hundreds of thousands of people's records have been sealed through that process. They can't possibly send a letter to those people because, first of all, some of the cases are pretty old, and who knows how how accurate the address is, and secondly, they just couldn't afford to do that. So that's really the only way that you're gonna find out if you've been clean slated. The downside is some of those cases you could have had expunged. So when we look at, say for example, an ARD program, and it's not there anymore, then we know that it's been clean slated. We could go in and file an expungement petition behind that, so it no longer even exists in that vault. In that vault is where only law enforcement can look and certain licensing agencies. For example, if your case was sealed, you would never be able to apply for a gun license, because those folks would be able to look in that vault and determine that you had a conviction that would prevent you from getting a gun license. But other than that, most normal employees, they can't look in that vault. So you can say, if you're just gonna, even it won't be on the FBI record, it won't be on your state record, and you're not required to disclose any information if your case has been sealed to either employment or housing. Again, as long as it's not employment that involves them doing, being able to look in that vault like the TSA. You wouldn't get a job with the TSA because they can look in that vault. So in February of '24, in addition to misdemeanors that happened in 2018, with a misdemeanor conviction, you have to be arrest-free for 7 years following the disposition. The day you pled guilty counts 7 years forward. If you haven't been arrested in that 7-year period, you can get your record sealed. It might not have been automatically sealed, and you might wonder why. It's because not all clerks do the dockets with all the information that that computer needs to see. The computer needs to see what level of, what grade the crime is, and if you've paid your court costs, not so much your court costs, that's been waived now, but restitution, if restitution was ordered. And if the computer can't see it on its first go-round, no one's gonna delve. That means we have to file a petition. In February 24, they added a whole list of felonies. You have to wait 10 years if you have a felony without any misdemeanor or felony convictions during that 10-year period. You can have summary offenses during that 10-year period, and it won't affect the ability to seal. It's felonies 2s and 3s. Most, all of the drug charges, burglaries, anything that's a felony 2 and 3, except for certain ones that we'll get to. So what can be sealed? So again, most misdemeanors, as long as 7 years free of felony misdemeanor convictions. Many felonies after 10 years. I haven't updated this. Fines and costs do not have to be satisfied. You just have to pay restitution if that's been ordered. There are some exclusions for misdemeanor 1s. Almost all of the misdemeanors are eligible.
Excuse me, for that last slide. So if someone committed their crime like 10 years ago, and then in between they have a misdemeanor for like a DUI, can that person, do they have to start over from the date of the DUI?
The tolling starts. So the day they pled guilty to the DUI, 7 years from then.
Okay.
And then they could get rid of both the DUI and the prior one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If it's a felony, then it'd be 10 years from the day of pleading guilty
To the DUI.
to the DUI. But they could seal that DUI in 7 years and then wait 3 more years and get the felony sealed.
Thank you.
So Article B offenses, those are kind of the exclusions, crimes of violence, stalking. It's not that common that misdemeanor 1s are in, not too many misdemeanor 1s are in Article B. Article D offenses are a crime against family, endangering welfare of children. That comes up most often, of course, in a DUI if you have children in the car. So if you were in the ARD program, nothing to worry about because everything gets taken care of. But if you had to plead guilty to that and the DUI could get sealed, but not the endangering. That would remain open. Firearms offenses are all excluded. Tiered sexual offenses, any kind of sexual offense where you were required to register, corruption of minors, and any attempts. So those are all exclusions, actually under both felonies and misdemeanor ones. There are some petition disqualifications. If you ever were, convicted of murder, felony one, 2 or more possession with intents. And that's not one arrest where there's several charges, because that happens quite often, but that's 2 separate arrests and 2 separate convictions. Then you can never get any of your records sealed. You would have to go to the Board of Pardons. You have to wait 15 years instead of the 7 years if you had 4 or more misdemeanor 2s or higher. And again, that's 4 separate arrests, not 4 charges in the same arrest. And if you had any felony in a 15-year period involving those Article B or D offenses. You only have to wait 10 years if you had 2 or more misdemeanor 1s or higher. And those are convictions again, not that you were arrested on a misdemeanor 1 and it was null pros, but that you were actually convicted on a misdemeanor 1. And again, those certain offenses, never disqualifying or simply being arrested, any amount of summaries, any amount of misdemeanor 3s. So this is sort of the chart. I know it might be hard to read from back there, but it's sort of the chart for Clean Slate automatic cleaning. And as I indicated, the problem is non-convictions and summary offenses, they could get expunged, but they're going to get clean slated. I mean, that's better than, especially if somebody didn't know the difference, at least it's not going to be in their record anymore. Ungraded misdemeanors, misdemeanor 3s and misdemeanor 2s, those all, except for those situations where I talked about, those all get clean slated if the computer can read and interpret the data. Misdemeanor 1s always have to have a petition, and the felonies always have to have a petition. So this is the petition-based sealing. Again, everything that I talked about that didn't get clean slated, we would just file a petition on, and the ones that have to be filed a petition on anyway. So this is just general information on where in all the counties the offices are, how to get started at the helpline, how to apply online, who we can help and who we can't help. So if there aren't any, we talked a little bit about how to get employment even if you have your criminal record while you're waiting the time period. Philadelphia and Reading have a fair hiring ordinance. They're not, it's called ban the box. They're not allowed to ask about your criminal record. So they either hire you or don't hire you based on what they see and what the merits are. After 90 days, they're allowed to ask. If you've done a good job, they're really kind of in a box, because if they fire you based on your criminal record, that's discrimination. And you can file a complaint with the EEOC. Many employers, there's like second chance employers. They're becoming more and more popular as people, might not want to work certain jobs. So you kind of look in that. There's a couple of agencies in Chester County, the OIC is one of them, and CareerLink is another one, that are actually funded in order to help people find jobs that have criminal records. And they also help when it's time, they know to contact legal aid for referral. So we help through that. It is hard to pinpoint the fact that you're being discriminated against because of your criminal record, because most employers are smart enough to say, oh, we just found someone more qualified. However, the EEOC has successfully sued a lot of big box employers, like the Dollar General. There's only so many times you can go to the well at the Dollar General and say we found somebody more, qualified. So they got sued, and so now they don't pay so much attention to the criminal So we try to do that too. Let me go back, I'll just leave that up. So what I usually do now is, like I said, if you just wanna come over, if you think you know, you don't have any questions and there's nothing that we can do to clear your record, you're welcome to leave. Otherwise, you can stay and come over and we can do a search unless you brought your record and determine what it is, we can do that.
Thanks.